Hi there, if you're new to my channel, you probably think I'm obsessed with Kindles, but the reality is I've only been using Kindles now for about a year. Prior to this, I was reading books exclusively from physical paperback books every single night using a real actual hard copy book. But last year I got my first Kindle, and now it's been just over a year now since I've been reading on Kindle. I want to share my thoughts on what it's been like with reading on a Kindle for a full year compared to reading on physical books. I want to start by giving 3 things I miss about paperback books and talking about 3 things I love about my Kindle. Let's jump into it. Now, the first thing I miss about paperback books is getting to buy paperback books and getting them in the mail. There's just something about getting real books made of real paper, flipping through them and putting them on your bookshelf. I really miss growing my bookshelf and putting new books on it. I still find myself buying new books both on Kindle and then again on paperback just so I can put them on my bookshelf and have a real copy of it. There's also something really special about having a bookshelf that's filled with books that represent you and your personality. That is something you just simply don't have on a Kindle. Your Kindle bookshelf is nothing compared to the real bookshelf you may have in your bedroom or in your house somewhere. It's just such a special feeling that I miss so much. The second thing I miss about paperback books is actually loaning them out to my friends. Having a bookshelf at home that represents you is a great conversation starter, especially in today's world when you're on Zoom all day, taking meetings for work or for your school. People see books in the background. It's a great conversation starter. But also when people come over physically to your house, like family or friends, whatever it may be, and they see a book that interests them, it's such a special feeling giving them a paperback book as a gift. They may not always read the book, that's also fine, but it's just so special gifting a book to somebody else, especially the idea of recycling books. That's also very special. Now, Kindle does have a loan book feature, but it's very limited to how many times you can loan a book and for how long it's loaned out for. With paperback books, these things are timeless. If you treat them well, they could last a lifetime. Now, the last thing I miss about paperback books that I really do miss a lot is the idea of making progress while reading through a book. Every single time you turn the page on a paperback book, you feel a bit of progress being made. And over time, you just see the pages go and go, and you know how far along you are in a book. The biggest issue I have with my Kindle is not knowing how much of the book is left. And you're probably wondering, hey, there's a percentage at the bottom. Why don't you look at that? That percentage is there, but oftentimes it includes things like the appendix or the index at the back of the book. And the real idea is the book will end around 80%, sometimes 90%. It's just different every single time. So you don't really know how far along you are in the book. And there's just something about turning a page and making progress. When you turn a page on the Kindle, it's not actually turning a page. It takes several Kindle pages to equate to one physical page. So you don't actually know how far along you are on a Kindle book. It's kind of a rough idea. With the physical book, you can skip ahead, go through the pages and see exactly where you are. I really miss that part of owning paperback books. So as you can see, the paperback books have a lot of cool things that I miss, but those are all very subjective things. They're more of the emotional side of things. When it comes to owning a Kindle, there are 3 things I love about it, and it's all about functionality. The first being is I can read way more books on my Kindle than I can on paperback books. Last year when I got my Kindle, I do remember those first few months, I just went so fast through so many books. I would normally read 1 paperback book a month. On my Kindle, I must have read 2-3 books a month for the second half of last year. It was such a great feeling. You kind of lose that pressure of having to read a book cover to cover. I'm much more likely to skip through books and find the parts I'm most interested in on my Kindle. And especially if a book is getting too boring, I'll just stop reading it entirely. With physical books, there's a bit more pressure to read the entire book. I don't have that with my Kindle, and I prefer it that way. And then lastly, there's instant gratification on the Kindle. With physical books, you have to kind of buy the book and wait for it to arrive in the mail. On a Kindle, you kind of buy the book and read it right away. And if you don't like the book, you can just return it. And I really do enjoy that instant gratification. It just feels so much quicker. I just read a lot more often with my Kindle. The second reason why I love my Kindle is the whole idea of saving paper and saving space. I do love having physical books, but they do take up a lot of space in my physical world. Having a bookshelf takes up space in my room. Having more books means I need more bookshelves over time. It does add up very, very quickly. There's also a bit of an environmental impact in terms of printing so many pages. I am sure using a Kindle involves some sort of environmental impact as well, but I've had to guess, I'm sure it's less of an impact than buying a physical book. And I say that because oftentimes I buy a paperback book, I read it, I put it on my bookshelf, I never touch it ever again. It feels like such a waste. You're buying something that you only actually use for a few weeks, then you put it away and never touch it again. That's why you kind of have to go out of your way to recycle them, give it to somebody else to read if you're lucky. On a Kindle, you don't have any of that waste. It's all digital. That's a huge selling point to me personally. The last reason why I love my Kindle so much is the whole idea of notes and retention. I just learned so much more when reading on a Kindle compared to physical books. When I was reading on physical books, I had a notebook alongside my physical book, and I would take notes as I've read in my notebook. And I would never go back and reread my notes from that notebook. On a Kindle, everything is automated for me. I use a service called Readwise. Link for that down below if you want a free trial for that. And that service actually takes all my Kindle highlights and notes, exports them into Readwise, and I use the Readwise app every single day to review 5 random highlights. That actually actively gets me to review all the things I am reading in a much more structured format. On top of that, all my notes and highlights are digital, so it syncs across my iPad, my Kindle, my phone, my computer. Everything is everywhere, and that you cannot get with physical books. And then lastly, I have all my notes being exported into Evernote and Notion, so I can search for them all in one central place. I actually have a whole video that talks about how I remember everything I read. Link for that on the screen right now. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a comment down below. What do you prefer, physical books or Kindles? I'm very interested to hear. I'll see you next time.